billion. Welcome. You're watching Countdown right here on Bloomberg Quint, and the start to the week has been pretty strong, with the indices showcasing gains of closer to about 1.5% on the Nifty, led by banks, where the bank Nifty's got gains of more than 1.5%. We'll talk about all of that and more, but let's take you through the headlines for the time being. Nifty Sensex should see a sharp rebound, trade with gains of over 1%. Moving on, we've got a few more stocks to discuss, with BPCL reporting its numbers today. ICICI Bank is the top gainer on the Nifty after posting a profit in the second quarter after asset qualities also improve. Power players see a sharp spike after Supreme Court asked KRChoksey to decide on amending power purchase agreements for 3 imported coal-based power plants. And sugar stocks surge after ISMA cuts output forecast for 2018-2019 to 32 million tons. And finally, a weaker rupee and lower inventory gains may take a toll on BPCL's profit in the second quarter. Good afternoon, Neeraj. A stronger start this afternoon. Yeah,
not bad, really. I mean, not something that we anticipated, to be honest, looking at the Asian screen in the morning, Devina. But yeah, doing well. Let's pull up the indices. We're trading in and around the highest point of the day. This is been a very strong afternoon. The mid caps and the small caps too. Remember, they started off well, the mid cap and the small cap indices, and I think they're doing reasonably well right now. So the market breadth is looking extremely positive. Bring up the advanced decline ratio on the screen. Look at that. It's about 1:4, nearly 1:4 in favor of the advances, or 4:1 in favor of the advances, as the case may be. And just before we move on to our markets and the heat map, just bring up what the world markets are doing right now. So the European indices, which opened about half an hour ago, should pull those up on the screen. There is, well, a mixed session, but no alarm bells as yet. The Dow Futures should come up on your screen as well. And let's just see that after Friday's cuts, what's happening there. A bit of a quiet session on the Dow Futures as well. So 24709, there's not too, is okay. And the heat map now will come up on your screen to tell you what's doing well. Well, banks, as ICICI, Axis, SBI, the 3 principal reasons why the Nifty Bank is doing what it is doing and taking the markets along with it. So ICICI and Axis, ICICI up a whole 11%, SBI about 8%. Axis Bank has some 5% gains to itself, so really strong show by that corner. Adani Port bounces up very strongly in trade, I must say, and Indiabulls for the last few days has actually had more days of gains than losses, I must say, in today's session too, of about 6%. Dr. Reddy is reacting to numbers, and amongst others, L&T is doing well. So private banks and corporate-facing banks predominantly, as well as pharma is doing well. Not all banks are doing well though, because if you look at the losing end, it's essentially all the retail-focused banks, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Bank, HDFC Bank, which are bearing the stick of the selling pressure. But the day is only strengthened during as the progress has been, and doesn't look like we'll come off very rapidly, Devina, because these are strong days. ICICI Bank is now up a whole 11%.
Well, that's leading the way, and SBI too following suit from the banking lot. But if you look at the broader markets, obviously the representation of power in the Nifty is not as high. But if you take a look at the broader market, the power stocks are really leading the charge in today's session. So firstly, on the back of the Supreme Court advising the KRChoksey to look at the power tariff revisions, both Adani Power and Tata Power have seen strong gains in intraday trade. So if you take a look at Adani Power, double-digit gains coming in for both of these counters. Aside from that, not just those stocks, but you've got stocks which have reported numbers. In fact, Tata Power also just a few minutes back reported numbers. 335 crores is what they clocked in terms of their profit number. So that also probably adding on. Those were in line with street expectations. Earnings cheer was seen in stocks like Divi's Lab. You had Eros International and Vinay Organics, which posted stronger numbers, and all of these stocks are seeing gains in intraday trade. aside from Adani Power and Tata Power, the rest of the power pack also is probably rising on the back of the gains coming in from these two. So you've got stocks like REC, Reliance Power, Torrent Power, stocks doing well. Some volume buzzers. OBC on the back of good numbers had seen an incremental performance last week. It's carrying forward to this week. 69 lakh shares have been traded there. Union Bank and Canara Bank also trade with gains and heavy volumes at that. Far and few, but two losers that I'd like to highlight. One is Jet Airways. That stock has seen a dip in today's session, as well as Eveready Industries. These are two stocks that have not managed to align themselves with the overall market mood and momentum. But that's for the broader market. Let's take a look at what's been buzzing in the futures and options space. And Agam joins in for that. Agam.
Well, there's a return of strength in the benchmark indices right now, even as we see the Nifty as well as the Sensex advance by around 1.5%. And quite naturally, we have seen a little more accumulation, this time towards longs, considering a 2% increase in open interest for the Nifty futures. Coming down to the Nifty banking futures too. And once again, this index is a little more active. And well, there you have it, about a 6.5% increase in OI there as well. Now, while we do have some diverse movements in the banking Nifty, and I'm going to come to that in a little bit, your volatility index has risen by another 6%, despite the fact that we have seen the indices advance as well. So watch out for this. This, of course, naturally means that there is a considerable expansion in your option premiums. And speaking of options, let's bring up your open interest distribution as well as change. In terms of distribution, we still have max OI at the 10,000 mark, and of course it's tested the 10,000 mark a few times and it's come back up. But right now about a good 2% away from that level. And when it comes to changes specifically today, there is more and more writing around the same levels that we've been talking about right now. So, well, as you can see, there is a considerable support building around the mark of 10,000. Let's talk about stocks, and I was mentioning banks earlier. So we do have significant gains in ICICI Bank, which is seeing 18% increase in open interest, even as its underlying advances by 11%. So longs there. And we've seen longs coming up in Axis Bank as well, which is following suit, and that's also advancing in trade. We have about a 5% rise there. However, on the losing end, we do have IndusInd Bank as well, again from the banking space, leading some of these declines coming through. And if you disregard the banking space, we also have some weakness in Hindustan Unilever. It has come off day's lows, but still down 1%, 5% increase in open interest, and shorts on the whole being added as far as HO is concerned. So on the whole, today's day of trade is going to be about the banks, and that's possibly the reason why we have seen this gain, this considerable gain in the benchmark indices right now.
All right, Agam, thanks very much for that. And rightfully so in the banks, the leader of the pack being ICICI Bank. It is the top gainer on the index today. This comes in after the private lender reported a profit in the second quarter and also witnessed an improvement in asset quality. To discuss the details about the bank's earnings and the banking sector at large, joining us right now on the phone line is Ashutosh Mishra. He is the senior analyst at Reliance Securities. Ashutosh, good afternoon to you. Let's start off first with ICICI Bank itself and the kind of reaction we're seeing post earnings. So, while the top line may have missed the street estimates a bit, on most of the other parameters, the bank has really surpassed expectations.
Yes, on all major operating performance parameters, the bank has surpassed the expectations. Taking from the asset quality, if you see, the surplus liquidity has come down substantially, and that too, if you go further deep into it, you'll find that a major part of the surplus liquidity has come from the currency depreciation of the earlier recognized foreign loans. So even if you look at the NIMS portion, sequentially, the bank's NIMS has improved compared to the many other banks which has witnessed a pressure on the NIMS. Further loan growth as well as drill down list, restructured loans, on all major parameters they have shown a substantial improvement. So this is what the market is rewarding to them.
According to you, is this a significant positive now that they've done for themselves this quarter? They've got a new management at the helm, and comparatively now for ICICI Bank to stack up against some of its other peers, would you give it more weight than the others?
So if you look, there are many negatives which were there for the ICICI Bank has been get addressed in the last one and a half month or so. So one of them was the management continuity about it. So that has got addressed. Second was the provision coverage ratio. So now the provision coverage ratio is approaching towards the level where the P&L impact of the asset quality will be minimal in the especially from the FY20 onwards. So that's the important factor which is really helping investor to take the long call on the bank at this point of time.
Ashutosh, it's not just ICICI. I think as a result of these numbers, the corporate-facing banking space has just moved up with gusto today. Axis up 5%, SBI is doing well, and it's at the expense of the retail-focused banks. Is that something that you would see your clients do as well? Maybe take some chips off the, if at all that is happening, which is take some chips off the table from the retail-focused banks and put that one into the corporate-facing banks?
That trade can be there because if you look, next quarter is also going to be very good for corporate focused bank because the recovery which has come from the SR state was much higher than the expectation for them. Okay, which will be get reflected in the 3Q result. This, along with what we are saying in the issue in the NBFC space, is basically going to help them to address this rate. Is basically has helped them to address. And the loan growth issues factor, especially. So those things are really helping corporate bank at this point of time. And if even number wise, if you look at provisioning expenses, they've come down substantially. Post they are reaching the PCR of in between 60 to 70%, almost all of them. So the improvement in the ROE and ROE will be substantial in the next year, and that's what the growth can return back because the competition from NBFCs come down. Your return ratio will improve in next year. So these things which is really helping them, and they are available at a relatively quite cheaper compared to these retail banks. So that's what is probably investors are trying to take call on.
Right. So say from a 1 year perspective down the line, just maybe 1 to 3 years down the line, what do you think are going to be critical growth drivers for some of these banks? And in light of that, with what's been happening in the NBFC space, do you see that being a significant kicker for some of these banks?
Yeah, so if you look, we can see the significant upside in many of these corporate banks from the medium to long term perspective, because the business fundamentals and operating environment for them has changed significantly in the last few months, and especially asset quality will be behind them at least by the end of this year. So this will really help them to come out and give strong growth on the profitability from next year onward.
Right.
And this play can be there across the line.
Okay, got that. Could you also give us your preferences in the banking space, your pecking order in terms of the kind of stocks that you would have within the banking space?
So corporate focused bank, we have buy betting on Axis, ICICI and SBI. We doesn't rate any buy on other public sector banks because of the merger concerns at this point of time. So these three within the corporate banks will be will remain our buy.
Those names again?
Within the corporate banks.
Yeah, could you just repeat the names for us, please?
So basically Axis Bank,
okay,
Axis Bank, ICICI and SBI.
Okay, fine. Got that.
Yeah.
Ashutosh, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so very much for joining us. Appreciate you taking out the time. That's a quick take on what's been happening to ICICI Bank. A real cheer on the numbers and looking positive in terms of the kind of stock price performance as well. So the market was really rewarded those numbers. 348 on ICICI Bank, and on the back of that you were seeing some of the other bigger banks doing what they're doing, with the bank Nifty being upheld with 1.7% gains this afternoon. Let's take a quick look at what's been happening to some of the other stocks as well. Adani Ports being one, that stock has moved up 7% right now. So big name there, and at the high point of the day. Aside from that, a few other names that have gained ground in today's session include the likes of a Canara Bank, which is up 11.5%. Union Bank is up 11%. Bank of India is up about 8.5%. So the smaller names, along with the larger names, are contributing to the gains this time around. A few other names, the likes of a DLF is up 7%, which takes its 7-day tally to 15% gains. You've got a Torrent Power, India Cements, a Reliance Infra, some of these names which are up and about in trade today. India Cements is also up. All right, let's now put the focus on sugar stocks. All stocks are buzzing in trade today. ISMA has also reduced its production forecast for 2018-19 to 32 million tons, owing to issues in states like Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. Yash Kapadia is here with more details on the same. Yash, what are some of the other factors behind the surge that we're seeing in most of these sugar names today?
Good afternoon, Devina. So there are multiple reasons behind the sweet rally that we are seeing in sugar stocks today. The first key trigger has to be the international prices, which have moved up by 28% in just the last 1 month. Now, this is on account of two primary reasons. Brazil, which is the largest producer of sugar in the world, that is expected to see lower than estimated sugar production, just like India, in the current sugar season. Now, this is because of the higher than anticipated rainfall in the central and southern regions, wherein a large part of the sugar cane is produced, which has impacted the crop, and as a result of which cane acreages have come down by as much as 7% as compared to the same period last year. Similarly, when it comes to Thailand, which is the third largest producer of sugar, that has seen a drop in sugar production on account of very less rainfall in the region, as a result of which the sugar production in Thailand is expected to fall by as much as 7% to 130 million tons in the sugar season starting 2018 to 2019. Now the key reason apart from that has to be the lower than anticipated production in India. ISMA just recently came out with their revised estimate for the new season, wherein they are expecting the sugar production to be about 32 million tons. The earlier estimate stood at about 35.5 million tons. The two main reasons for this is the incidence of white grub infestation in Maharashtra. Maharashtra is one of the key geographies which produces sugarcane, and our interactions with some of the sugar millers tell us that the production this time around could be less than 9 million metric tons. So that is one more reason, as well as Uttar Pradesh. Now, while Maharashtra has seen a lower than expected rainfall, Uttar Pradesh has seen a high amount of rainfall, with some of the sugarcane growing regions seeing flooding as well as waterlogging in the fields, and as a result of that, the sugar crop has been damaged significantly. So the sugar production for the next season, that is expected to be more in line with what we had the last year as well. So these are the two key reasons why we are seeing the rally in sugar stocks.
Thanks a lot for that, Yash. Let's discuss this in further detail with Mr. M. Manikam, the Managing Director at Sakti Sugars, joins us right now on the phone line. Mr. Manikam, good afternoon. Neeraj here. Thank you so much for joining in.
Good afternoon.
So, does this 32 million tons also sound a bit optimistic to you? I mean, whoever I speak to who tracks this space very, very closely tells me that about 31 million tons should be the tops as far as production this year goes. What is your assessment, sir?
Yeah, see, last year was 31.2. I think now the ISMA estimates is coming to 31.5. So they're pretty much equal to last year's estimate. And if you deduct, let's say, 1 million from Maharashtra and 1 million from UP, you could pretty much go down from here. So I think it's an optimistic estimate. So, earlier Maharashtra was talking about crossing 11 million and UP was talking about crossing 11, 12 million. So if you knock out all those numbers which they were talking about, we could probably be looking at 31.5 as tops. I mean, we could be even lower.
Interesting. So I'm just trying to assess what does this do, if anything, to one, the global cycle and then the domestic cycle. Anyways, global prices have moved up in the last couple of months, but I'm thinking out loud, Brazil, approximately 10 odd million tons, if my calculations serve me correct, the output could be down. Thailand could be down about 2.5–3 million tons. India is already down 10% from the levels that people were anticipating. Does this give a floor to the sugar prices?
Yeah, I think sugar prices internationally also will move up, and you will see export being a viable option now. So we can export about 2 to 3 million tons out of India. Then I think India sugar also will come in balance, because we have an overhang of about 10 million tons opening stock. So if we can get rid of some of that, And normally, I think the production next year will go down further. So we should be ready for a lower production in 1920 as well.
Wow. And Mr. Manikam, since you were one of those earlier proponents of ethanol blending, and I think you had some capacities as well, at least some years back when none of the other millers had. How much of this sugar cane produce could be diverted to predominantly ethanol manufacturing in the current year? Because as I hear, the tenders are out. It's just that the industry or the country at large doesn't have the capacity to fulfill all of those tenders. And therefore, even ethanol manufacture via direct blending might be an option. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, see, right now, I think this year you will not have the capacity, but next year we will have the capacity coming in. And if you're looking at ethanol, direct ethanol price of over 58, 59, it's actually more conducive for converting sugar into alcohol, cane into alcohol. So we could even lose up to 3 to 4 million tons very easily.
What does all of this do to the finances of companies, Mr. Manikam? One is that the sugar price is moving up, but two is the consol EBIT numbers because of sugar, because of cogen, and because of ethanol. Now, for you as a company, and a hypothetical question about if you were in the red, let's say in the last sugar season, because of all of these changes, the current season, which is October to September next year, how does this change the economics or the dynamics for you as a company?
See, for us, actually, we are still, going through the effect of drought. So this year, planting will be good. So 1920 will be a good year for us. I mean, what we are anticipating is we'll probably break even in 18-19. I mean, not 19 March, will be 20 March. But 1920 season, which will be 21 March, will be a very good year for us. So you can see probably one of the best performances coming out of the mills, mostly in South and all that, maybe in 1920.
You mean to say October 2019 to September 2020, that sugar year?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Would that also be a factor of higher prices, lower production maybe than what the current production is, and the possibility of exports being strictly there?
Yeah, I think it will be kind of a combination of everything. See, all said and done, regardless of government policies, the sugar follows a cycle. So I think we are in the cycle now. We have just hit the top, and now the cycle is turned around. So we will probably have about 18 months to 1 year of earlier cycles when we had a shortage. International sugar was cheap, so you could afford to import because oil prices had gone down to about $30, $35. Right now, oil companies at $70, $75. The international sugar prices are not likely to come down.
Right.
So import to control the prices may not be an option for the government. So you would probably have a good time to go through, for the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, just one small insight, Mr. Manikam. Because of this ISMA production estimate, and likely it for go down further, let's assume that there is a floor or some uptick to sugar prices as well, and the ethanol blending that the additional revenue stream that comes in. What does this typically do to an average sugar mill's EBIT numbers? I mean, in the years gone by, while there would have been top line growth, the EBIT growth would not have been there. What does this do to EBIT numbers typically?
See, we were actually we were almost at a negative EBITDA level. If you look at, let's say, we were probably negative by about 500 to 600 rupees. Now, we could be positive by about 1,000 rupees. Okay, so it's a swing of almost 1,500 rupees a ton of cane. It could make a big difference for most of the companies, from a negative to positive, and a very large positive at that.
Okay, my final question, Mr. Manikam, maybe not for you, but maybe for some of your other peers in the state of Uttar Pradesh, there are significant cane arrears still existing. How do millers resolve that issue? Because I don't think the government will let companies make profits, not supernormal, but profits, if indeed they haven't paid arrears to the farmers as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this profit will help them to clear off the arrears. But right now, they have, it's an unenviable situation where the government cannot help them, banks don't want to give money. So we are in a situation. I mean, one of the reasons why the UP millers will be losing cane is not only the floods, but also might be some diversion to Kansar in Gur.
Okay. Let's wait and watch what happens, Mr. Manikam. Thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us today. That's M. Manikam, the Managing Director at Sakti Sugars. And while it's a small company, I think the highlights out there for everybody to hear. He believes that the numbers could actually be even lower than what we are working with right now. As we speak, by the way, Colgate numbers are out, so address those too. But just keep in mind, sugar, I think all of those stocks are doing rather well because of the production cut forecast by ISMA for the current sugar year. The sugar year typically starts from October when the crushing season begins and lasts till September of the next year. However, Colgate numbers out and EBITDA at 329 crores if I'm not wrong versus about 300 odd crores. So there is that number, and the net profit at 196 crores versus 177 crores. So that's the number that is coming in from Colgate. The stock hasn't quite reacted too much. The sales growth numbers have come in at about 7%. So that's interesting. I remember a CLSA note that come out which said that the last few years underperformance might just lead to Colgate doing well, and they had given out a buy and upgraded Colgate to a buy, but it doesn't quite say whether these 7% volume growth numbers work well for the stock or no. Just about flattish in the session today.
All right, moved lower actually post the numbers, 1105 on Colgate. We'll keep an eye out on all those numbers, and also watch it for the big one, BPCL, when that comes out with its numbers. But it's the power stocks that's garnering all the interest in today's session, particularly the likes of Tata Power and Adani Power, which are up and about in trade today after the Supreme Court ordered the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, the KRChoksey, to consider revising the tariff mentioned in the case of the three imported coal-fueled power plants. Yatin Mota is standing here to tell us why will this come as a big relief for most of these power producers, and then again what this means for the regular consumer. Yatin.
Afternoon, Devina, and just to give you a background, we have the Mundra power plants for both Adani Power and Tata Power reeling under immense pressure, given the fact that the entire linkage was from Indonesian coal. And because of various changes by the government in Indonesia, the price of coal went up significantly, which impacted the profitability of these plants. In fact, they have almost wiped out the entire net worth of the companies. They have been reeling under debt pressures and mounting losses, given the fact that the current coal price makes it unviable to produce power from these power plants. And in order to get a relief from KRC, various petitions were filed. And finally, we have the Supreme Court, which has now directed KRC to make way for amending the power purchase agreements with respect to the plants in Gujarat, which includes the Mundra power plant of Tata Power, a 4,600 megawatt Mundra power plant of Adani Power, and also 1,200 megawatt SR Power based out of Salya. So, all of these plants would potentially benefit from the ruling which the Supreme Court has given, which paves the way for KRC to increase tariffs. Not only that, we had an empowered committee, chaired by various industry experts and retired judges, which, basically favored full pass-through of the fuel cost. Not only that, they also favored extending power purchase agreements and, the sacrifice by lenders in terms of taking haircuts. So let's see how really the entire, power tariff thing shapes up, because there will be a lot of objection from consumer groups as well as, the state electricity boards, which might get impacted because of rising power cost. But most of the analysts do believe that this will be a significant positive, since the losses from these plants could potentially stop. In fact, I was going through a SBI Capital report which said that once under recovery is arrested, there could be a swing of as much as 50 rupees per share for companies like Tata Power. So significant amount of upside, given the fact that the losses as well as the mounting debt for both Tata Power as well as Adani Power could potentially stop once KRC decides on the factor which is rising the power tariffs and revising the power purchase agreements.
All right, Yatin, thanks very much for that. So that's definitely a big relief for some of these power producers, probably protecting them from going into liquidation as well. Tata Power there, 11.5% higher. Adani Power, 18.5% at last count, now closer to the high point of the day. Well, let's talk more markets and bring in our experts then. We've got Hemen Kapadia of KRChoksey, who's joining us in the studio right now, and along with him, we have Nitasha Shankar of Securities in the studio with us as well. Good morning to both of you. Good afternoon to both of you. I'll start off with you, Nitasha, and what we saw last week. It wasn't particularly the best week for the indices. We lost 3%, and last month itself we lost closer to 7.5% on the index. Do you see this coming to a halt at best, or today's reversal, does it mean anything?
Not really. We do think that the volatility will continue in the coming months. In fact, we expect it to increase, especially with the state elections coming later on this year and the general elections coming early next year. So we do think that the volatility is just set to go up in the coming weeks.
All right. So what are you doing right now in terms of positioning yourself for 1 year down the line?
So what we're doing is we are accumulating the fundamentally good stocks, because there's been a sizable correction both on, in fact, across the board, whether it be it large caps, mid caps or small caps. So we are using these levels to accumulate them over the next 6 months. That is our plan, and then post that just enjoy the returns for the next 4 years.
Well, interesting. So just before we get in the chart checks going, since we're in the topic of the power stocks when you guys came in, Nitasha, how did you read into this decision, and does the move that has happened, the knee-jerk reaction that has already happened, take care of the immediate benefits, because there's still no clarity as to what the eventual decision could be?
So I think as far as the news bites are concerned, it sounds quite positive. We still need to see how it would affect the fundamentals of the companies, because if you get into it, for all the three companies, Tata Power, Adani as well as the other one, they've actually been losing as far as their fundamentals are concerned. So it is necessary to see the fine print and also to see what the eventual decision will be before taking a call on them. But within the three, we still like Tata Power from a long-term basis, only if and only if it is positive as far as the fundamentals are concerned.
So if this decision turns out to be positive, then you would be a buyer in Tata Power.
Yes.
But at the current prices, the Tata Power stock, when the decision turns positive, is 10% higher, then you wouldn't be a buyer?
No, not really.
Okay, keep that at the back of your mind, viewers, anybody who's listening to the conversation right now. Anyways, let's get in our technical experts on board to try and make sense of this rally and whether or not there is more legs to it. Hemen Kapadia with us in the studios. Let's start off the conversation with him. Hemen, thanks so much for joining in. There is a bit of a bounce. Typically, on Mondays, we have a lull day and you predict a bounce, and the bounce comes in 2 days later. Today, we already have a bounce. How are you playing the markets then?
Well, thank you for having me, Neeraj. Normally,
Pleasure.
I have this conversation with Devina. But yes, I think the elusive bounce is finally underway. We had good rollovers, Neeraj. And the rollovers happened at around 10,200, 10,250. We saw OI addition in the Nifty, which was, we started last series around 1.65 or 1.7, Neeraj. We started this series at 2.07 crores. We've added OI, and like I said, the rollovers have happened below 10,250. I have a feeling as of now we posted a small bottom. Too early to say there's a trend reversal, but a bounce which is underway is not going to fizzle out in a hurry. I think we are going to 10,400. I won't be surprised if we go to 10,550 also. So it's been deeply oversold, deeply overdone, and finally, yeah, we are staging a comeback.
So the strategy you would deploy to play this?
Plain vanilla futures, or you sell the 9,800 puts, Devina, which is a safe thing. But I think plain vanilla futures is also a good idea, because 10 has held. We've seen significant, okay, it's too early in the series, but we've seen put writing at around 10,000. So as of now, 10,000 is sacrosanct, and I believe one can buy. Actually, it's moved up a bit, but I would say a 100-point stop loss and a 200-point target as far as the Nifty is concerned. Levels to look out: 10,250, 10,380, 10,490, 10,550. I still feel we have headroom till 10,550 or maybe even 10,600.
If you remember, the same thing happened when the Nifty was taking support at 10,200. There were 2 or 3 times that it took support to 10,200, bounced back up, but then when it broke that level, we saw levels straight on, sub 10,100 odd. Do you see that, this setup anywhere close to that? Or no, your indicators are suggesting?
The indicators are suggesting some decent strength, Devina. Thing is, the daily MACD gave a buy. The Nifty made a new low, and it's going to give a buy again today. So I'll take it as positive divergence. The market breadth has improved. The mid caps, small caps are looking like bouncing back. Last week we spoke about the Dow Jones getting hammered. That's happened. But I have a feeling Dow Jones and Nasdaq both look like posting small bottoms and staging a comeback in the latter half of the week. So I think the world markets also seem, even the FTSE is oversold. Yeah. So I think it's a worldwide phenomenon and they all look like staging a comeback. But here, I think the rollovers have been good. OI has been added. There's been put writing. And yes, positive divergence by technical indicators. We also seen long built up in some of the IT counters. So, and like I said, mid caps, small caps have done well. So I think it's a combination of everything. But crude, I think, could stage a comeback of sorts. The dollar seems to have plateaued at around the recent highs. I don't think they'll be conquered that easily, at least in the near term. Devina.
Okay, Brijesh Singh is also here with us, but before I go to him, I just want to highlight Indiabulls Housing Finance. So up until now, ICICI Bank was the top mover on the index, but it looks like Indiabulls Housing Finance has seen a surge of 12% now. So in the last few minutes of trade, the stock has really moved up 81 points higher, 765 on Indiabulls Housing Finance. The volumes, if you can have the AV80 function to see whether or not this is a price move substantiated by the kind of volume activity over the last 20-day average that we've been seeing on this counter. You know, it will probably 7.33 million shares. That's probably a big number to go by. Not that much more, but I guess it's a little bit shallow, this kind of price move on an Indiabulls Housing Finance. Brijesh, what are you doing on the index? And before the index, if you could just quickly give us a call on Indiabulls Finance, since we're talking about it.
Good afternoon, everyone. See, Devina, no doubt, if I was been checking the smaller time frame of the chart of Indiabulls Housing Finance, and a few candlesticks back, it has made a bullish hammer. And when a bullish hammer has been formed in a downtrend, it generally indicates for the reversal. And that bullish hammer low was somewhere around 640. Now has been quoting at 762. So on an immediate basis, the support has been concerned. 748 is a support. I'm looking that should be hold down. But on an immediate basis, it has a resistance 782 to 785. When this level of 785 has been crossed on the closing basis, we can see another leg of rally which can take the stock to the level of 825 to 830. So if someone wants to play, then keep a stop loss of 748. Play for the target of 782 to 785 followed by 825.
Okay, what are specific stocks, Brijesh?
See, regarding first of all, the Nifty has been concerned. Neeraj, Friday closing, when I was on your show, I told that we might be seeing a pullback rally, and that pullback rally can be take Nifty to the 10,185 mark, and with the stop loss of 9952, and then 9952 was a low of in the month of March 2018. So still that 9952 low has been holding on, and anyhow, now this 10,185 is been traded, and if we give closing above that, then the next level to watch on the higher side would be 10,255, and the major level would be 10,385. Anything above 10,385, we can say that we have overcome from the short-term bearish zone, and we can see a next sharp pullback rally to the level of 10,700. So if Nifty wants to play, then we can do one thing. If anything comes below 10,150 or say 10,160, we can go for a buy side with the stop loss of 10,100, right, and look for the target of 10,255.
Okay, we'll stay on. We'll just get in some stock-specific ideas as well. But I think GPL Hathway bagged a 1,246 crore order from the Gujarat government. Piyush Pankaj from the company joins us right now to talk about this and what does it mean. Good having you, Piyush. Thanks so much for joining in. What is this order about?
Yeah, this is the order from the Gujarat government on the Digital India initiatives, where they have given there's a two package. One is the package A and package B. We backed the package B, which is in the Saurashtra region on the BharatNet project. And the total project cost is 1246 crores. And it's a competitive bid which happened, and we have won that. So it's a prestigious thing for GTPL that we are contributing in the Digital India initiatives of the government and the Gujarat government.
Piyush, what would you be doing as a part of this order?
Yeah, we are going to be the project implementation agency for this. So we are going to connect 3,767 gram panchayats in the Saurashtra region, where we are going to implement the end-to-end optic fiber cable and digital infrastructure. And that will go to the centralized network operations center, which is establishing in the Gandhinagar in Gujarat. So it's like more of doing the whole capital expenditure for the whole project and creating the whole optical fiber, you can say the whole network in the Saurashtra region, which is coming under us on this as a project implementation agency.
How are the receivables going to come in for GTPL Hathway? I mean, is it...
See, GTPL Hathway, it's more of creating the capabilities. If you see our track record, we are the first company to start the Gandhinagar Smart City around 2 years and maintaining that from the 2-year side. We backed for connecting 1,319 police stations from the Department of Home, and we completed that project. The next project is Department of Science and Technology. We have connected the 13,027 locations.
Piyush,
for that, and this is the 4th project on this. So
right.
this
Piyush,
is the capability.
What I meant was the receivables for this particular order. Is it going to be in a phased manner?
No, it's going to be 1-year project. So in 1 year we have to complete, and we have to do this the connection for this 3,676 gram panchayats, 3,767 gram panchayats, and then we have to maintain it for 3 years in the first side. And there is an option to increase this project or this maintenance for next 4 years from the government.
So is that a separate order, the maintenance order?
Yeah, so maintenance is going to be like after putting the whole thing, you have to maintain the network. You have to maintain it from the knock also. And whatever leases had to happen and all those things that happen, we are going to get involved in those also for the monetization of those networks.
Piyush, Piyush, yeah, so a fair call. So 2 questions rolled into one. One is, would you have to get in a company like Sterlite Tech or somebody else to lay out this optic fibers for you in turn?
Yeah, so here I would. Here our consortium partner is Polycap. We are partnering, we have partnered with them. So they are going to supply the whole optic fiber for us. We are going to take all other equipments from the different vendors, which we have to for the OLTs.
So in which case,
ducts. Yeah.
So in which case, what would the margins be on such an order? 1246 crores, but you need to get a lot of vendors to execute this. What are the margins on a 1250 crore order?
See, generally the margins are between 15% to 20% on this, which we will see. Plus, in the maintenance side, you have to see that how you maintain it and how much margin you can make it on that.
All right. Great. Congratulations on the order, Mr. Piyush. Appreciate you joining us and giving us more details on that. So 1,246 crores is the order, which is to be completed within 1 year. Maintenance also lies with them for the next 3 years. And margin on such an order could be closer to about 15% for them. That's GTPL Hathway, up about 4% on the back of that order win, 89 rupees on the stock price. Brijesh, we left you talking about your index strategies. You want to quickly run us through some of your stock ideas? I believe you want to have a buy call on Adani Ports and a buy call on Tata Global.
Yeah, Devina, see, both the stock on a shorter term time frame, the chart has been trading on a lower higher bottom formation, which is giving a bullish, and followed by the indicator coming out from a oversold zone and giving a bullish sign with increase in volume. So even the trend line breakout has been seen in both the stocks. So Adani Port, anything below 322, one can take a buy call with the stop loss of 312 and play for the target of 342 to 343. Tata Global, anything below 218, one can take a buy call with the stop loss of 208, play for the target of 232 to 234. Both the stock duration is somewhere around 3 to 4 trading session.
Okay.
Vinay, your ideas? We haven't discussed your stock ideas as yet.
Yeah, I have a buy call on Reliance Capital, 227, stop loss 222, target 237. and a buy call on Mahindra and Mahindra. I'm bullish on the entire auto pack, whether it's Escorts, Eicher, Maruti, M&M. So buy in M&M at 735, stop loss 725, target 755. Neeraj.
Interesting. As we speak, about 1.5% higher for the benchmark indices. Nitasha, let me ask you an easy one and a tough one. If you would buy the top 2 Nifty gainers right now, ICICI Bank, Indiabulls Housing Finance, why or why not?
I would definitely buy ICICI Bank.
10% higher?
No, not probably at these levels. I would prefer a correction over there. So, but yes, we are positive on ICICI Bank from a long-term view, because there has been a lot of cleanup that they've done as far as their books are concerned. The book is healthier as compared to what it was about 6 months to 9 months ago. Valuations are attractive, and the subsidiaries have been adding value as well. On the other hand, as far as Indiabulls Housing Finance is concerned, we are not really very positive on it. There is a sizable amount of liquidity crisis which the NBFCs would be facing. During such a time, we prefer to go positive on the ones that are backed either by a strong parent or do not have that liquidity crisis looming up. So HDFC would be our top pick within the housing finance companies right now.
Should see what's happening to some of the other finance companies, also the smaller names. PNB Housing, Canfin Homes, Repco Home Finance. If at all there is some amount of seep through of the pricing activity in any of these names, but only a Canfin Homes is up about 6%. But the numbers for Canfin Homes are also relatively positive this quarter, and post that the stock has been fairly resilient and showcased some strong moves even in a falling market. 270 on Canfin Homes. Nitasha, anything in particular in the smaller names? Housing finance companies? Within the smaller names, Canfin Homes as well as Group Finance still continue to look quite good. Both of them have been gaining market share, and when the smaller housing finance companies are facing liquidity crisis, these can continue to gain market share, and because they do have a strong book as well as stronger balance sheets as well.
Oh, interesting. What else? I think it's essentially got to do with power companies, but the pharma names selectively have done very well today. The pharma index is doing very well too. Nitasha, did you have a chance to look at Divi's Labs numbers, and if you have coverage there? And if not, what within the pharma space?
Not really on Divi's Labs, but within the pharma space, we've been positive on pharma space overall for a while. Within this stocks, we are positive on Aurobindo Pharma as well as Biocon. We do believe that the new drug with Biocon has just got an approval for would start adding as far as the top line is concerned. Of course, there could be a little bit of a margin factor over there because it's with Mylan. But overall, it would start acting, helping them out. And on the other hand, even the biosimilars market is hugely underpenetrated, even in US. So we do think that there's a huge scope that the company has over there as well.
Last 7 days, though, the stock actually down about 3%, which is not bad considering some of the others that have dropped quite significantly. IT is a pocket, was one of the worst performers last week. The Nifty IT index dropped about 4.5%. You had all the mid-tier names as well as the larger names losing ground in last week's session. Today, though, there has been a pullback. TCS is up about 3.5%. You're seeing some gains coming into the likes of Infosys, Tech Mahindra, Mindtree. All of these names are active in today's session. Tech Mahindra is up about 2%. Hemen, anything on the charts? Mid cap or large cap?
Yeah, I think IT is giving a relief rally, and the relief is going to be slightly more extended. I'll pick Tata Elxsi, Devina. We are at around 986. I think this could give you a 5%, if not a 10% move in the next 4 weeks or so. We've seen OI built up in IT stocks today, the entire IT sector, Devina. I think that's positive. So, led by Tata Elxsi, I think your TCSs and your Infosys, everything bounces back. I'm not very clear about Hexaware though, but there's no question of shorting anything in the space, but Devina.
Okay. So far, Nitasha, what did you read into the kind of numbers that have been posted from the larger names as well as the smaller mid-tier companies?
So I think so far the numbers seem to be quite good. They've been beating expectations, if not meeting them. in most of the cases. Banks too have been as per the expectations, especially in the private banking side. Provisioning was a factor that was expected to go up, and that seems to be panning out the way it was expected as well. So if you're looking from a long-term perspective, like we said, that any kind of market volatility that you see is actually presenting a good opportunity to start accumulating stocks so that you get better valuations over there.
Yeah, but I think today's rally has been predominantly, I was just looking at the broader end of the spectrum, predominantly about the PSU banks. I mean, name a mid-sized PSU bank and that is up and about. So OBC up another 13%. Remember, it reacted a bit post its results and up another 13%. Canara Bank 12%, Union Bank 11.5%.
Bank of India.
Bank of India, Indian Bank, almost everything has done well. Yeah, you name a PSU bank and it is doing well. So leave out an SBI, leave out say a BOB, leave out a Canara Bank. Anything else, Nitasha, that you'd be comfortable buying?
Not really.
No, you wouldn't.
Not really.
So if any of your clients were stuck with the other names or had these other names in the portfolio, you would advise them to use these rallies as a chance to get out of these names?
Absolutely.
Switch into other PSU banks or no, not quite?
There are many stocks in the market other than PSU banks.
Yeah,
why not
just
go
because,
for those?
Well, that's true, but just wondering whether if you believe the PSU banks also have some chance for a rally.
If anybody was absolutely convinced that PSU bank is the one and only thing that they would like to invest in, we would still prefer to buy an SBI as compared to the other names as of now.
So sticking to large guys?
Yes.
Not the mid-tier names. Well, whether or not this is a flash in the pan goes to be seen. But today's session has propelled an SBI up 20 points, 267. Brijesh, an SBI on the charts?
See, the previous swing low of the SBI of 225 has been had been a hold on, and right now the stock has been quoting somewhere around 268. On an immediate basis, support lies somewhere around 253, 255. So any dip can be used for a buying purpose. And I'm looking stock having a multiple resistance at 270 to 274 juncture. Once this level of 270, 274 has been crossed, we can see a sharp pullback rally to the level of 295. So the only plus sign is the volume has been indicating that the price has been moving up, so the volume has been moving up. So this time it looks like we might try to cross that level of 270, 272, or say 270 to 274 of juncture of that 4 rupees resistance band. We might try to cover up that thing, and we can move to the level of 295 to 298. So definitely one can go for a buy side, but not at this. Little bit dip, it's come, keep a stop of the 255 and buy.
Okay, let's go across to the chart of the day now. Yatin Mota is joining us with an analysis, well, on the PSU banking index and something interesting that he's spotted on the data. Yatin, what do you have for us?
Well, it's about the banking stocks today, and look at how the PSU banking index has moved. Now, if you look at the one-year picture, last year same time around we had the government of India which announced the PSU bank recapitalization plan. And we had stocks like, PNB flying, 20-30%. So that was, probably one of the best days recorded for the PSU banking index last year. But if you look at today's move, on an average, we have seen PSU banks move anywhere between 8 to 10%. So we have heavyweights like SBI, PNB, Bank of Baroda for that matter, moving up 8%. And, a lot of these PSU banks. So today, the PSU banking index is higher by nearly 8%. And that's the best gain since last year's, PSU bank recapitalization announcement. So today, without any news, we have these PSU banking stocks which have moved, and this is the best performance in the last 1 year period on an intraday basis. So, this is a chart of the day. Nifty PSU bank index rallies the most in one year, and probably this is without news. The market and the newsrooms are silent today about why exactly are the PSU banking stocks up. But if you were to believe the analyst and the sales teams which work for brokerages, they are of the view that resolution for the SR Steel case would bring in significant amount of liquidity to the banking system. Banks will be able to recover a lot of these bad debts. And more importantly, today's Supreme Court verdict relating to the power projects in Gujarat, namely Adani Power and Tata Power's Mundra Power project, if there is a resolution there and KRChoksey, if they allow them to increase the tariffs, probably these plants can become viable, and there also the PSU banks have a significant amount of exposure, which is probably facing lesser risk than it was before. So this is what is fueling the banking rally, which is one of the best in the last 1 year.
Nitasha, Shankar doesn't seem to be buying that, though, I must say. But sorry, you were saying?
And hopefully it's not just a one-day phenomenon, and it probably looks to be like, at least news-driven. Goes to see tomorrow, day after, you can actually see the kind of movement back into these stocks.
Yeah.
Because they're smaller names, you've seen them collapse on days where the markets have fallen. This news, yes, it could be a driver, but sustainable.
Yeah, let's see, and we'll get Nitasha's view again on this one. But since we are talking about the bullish commentary, Hemen was saying that whether or not you can trade it is a separate thing, but the Nifty PSU Bank Index chart, Hemen, to your mind, looks very, very strong.
Yes, we've had a decent reversal today after positive divergence. I think we've posted a 5-7 trading session high today. I think it looks promising from an oversold situation. We are overcoming the weekly resistance level, which is now support. So I'd stick my neck out and say currently, at least short term, a bottom has been made. We are looking at a medium term bounce. We are at 2782. I'm looking at 2900 over here and maybe more. So I'd say worst is over, at least for the time being.
Okay, Nitasha, just before we let you go. So there are some green shoots, let's say, arguably, and as an argument's sake, but you would not be convinced.
I think if you're looking at the entire PSU banking space, there's not just one issue. There are quite a lot of issues which are still, to be resolved. Of course, this entire order, as far as the Gujarat-based power companies are concerned, it sounds good, but we still need to see whether it will help out on the fundamentals or not. And only then can we decide whether it's going to help as far as the repayability of the loan. Ability to repay the loans is concerned. So I think it's too early to call it a proper recovery. Of course, the news sounds quite interesting, but we still would prefer to go only with SBI over there.
Very good. Nitasha, thanks for reiterating that, and thanks for joining in today and giving us your perspective. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Okay, just before we take that break though, Brijesh, a stock that's moved up, not necessarily a PSU banking stock, but it's done very well today is Indiabulls Housing at 11.5% now. Would you be comfortable? I know we spoke about this earlier, but it's now trading at the highest point of the day.
See, now it's been quoting at 763, if I'm not mistaken. Still, my views would be same. If I'm not mistaken, I said 745 or say 748 would be the stop loss, followed by 785. And if anything's above 785, it trade and sustain. And we can see a sharp upside to the level of 825. So definitely, from a chart point of view, one can take a buy call at the present juncture, any dip somewhere around 760 or below.
Stay on, Hemen, so much more to talk about. The markets are looking very robust now. 10,212. We are now up 1.8% for the Nifty. This has been a strong day, and this is disconnected from the rest of the world because the rest of the world markets are not really moving up. Mind you, every rally thus far has been sold into. It'll be interesting to see if we can build on from here. But as we slip into a break, here on one more bullish voice, Mark Mobius, he spoke to us earlier about his view on EMs, the Indian markets and more. Listen in.
India is right up there, and Brazil is the other. Brazil and India are the two of the large markets we're focusing on. But then of the smaller markets, countries like Turkey, Mexico, Korea, Vietnam would be one of the frontier markets we're looking at. Those are the ones that we would be particularly interested in now.
Mr. Mobius, if 2017 was all about global GDP growth, helping all the export-oriented nations do well, 2018 now is starting to turn the corner around. Global growth is showing signs of slowing down. Maybe the US GDP might do okay, but the other markets not quite sure of. Do you think EMs can perform well and export-oriented economies can still perform well in that light?
Yes, I do. The reason why I say that is that, as you know, the U.S. market is on a correction mode now. And I believe the U.S. market probably has more to go down. We've seen this long bull market in the U.S., and now we're seeing a significant correction. When that happens, of course, money begins to flow out of the U.S. market. And where does it go? It has to go to overseas markets. And that includes, of course, emerging markets. And we're beginning to see some of that flow already taking place in a small amount, but still it's a trend that I think will continue. And of course that will benefit some of these markets, particularly those markets that are down significantly, where there are lots of bargains. There will be bargain hunters looking at those markets, particularly India.
Oh, interesting. That's music to the ears, Mr. Mobius. Just one small question. Once playing the devil's advocate, if you will. The bear camp would say that the U.S. economy, while the markets may have come off, the U.S. economy seems, if not red hot, then reasonably hot. And the wage growth out there might lead the Fed to hike rates at a much faster clip than what the Fed itself estimates right now. And the Fed has said it will be data dependent. Should we have a faster trajectory of rate hikes, would that mean more fund outflows from the EMs, and could that spoil the party a bit?
Not necessarily, because you've seen rates in the emerging countries going up as well. Because these countries wanted to defend their currencies, and they've reacted to what's happening in the U.S. So as U.S. rates go up, everybody else raises their rates as well. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a healthy development for many of these emerging countries, particularly India. I'd like to see lower rates. But the reality is that the currencies will then be protected. It won't go down as much as the U.S. dollars going up. So I think there'll be a move away from dollars as a result of correction in the U.S. market, and as a result of a topping out of the U.S. dollar strength.
Mr. Mobius, what do you make then of this last 2 months of outflows that we've seen from key emerging markets? India, for all its positives, the last 2 months has been badgered on the fund outflow front, October being arguably the worst month in the calendar year thus far.
Yes, of course, there's no question that people have reacted to what's happening in the U.S., expectation of higher rates in the U.S., but I think going forward it's going to be a different picture. A lot, by the way, depends on the reforms that Modi government is continuing to implement. I think that will make a big difference. For example, allowing money to come into India is now something that the government has to pay attention to. I know in our case, our funds have had to wait 6 months in order to enter the Indian market. That is much too long, and the government has to implement reforms to change that situation.
Mr. Mobius, to make an investment call, liquidity is one of the key variables to look at. So while making an investment call and choosing your country to invest in from the emerging market basket, where liquidity at this current juncture is a little bit thin versus what liquidity is in the US, how does one take a call based on that? Because in India itself, there is a slight bit of a squeeze.
Yeah, there's no question. Liquidity is critical in many of these markets. Of course, in our case, we do look at small and medium-sized companies as having some really good opportunities, and liquidity is limited in those countries and those companies. But we feel that if you're a long-term investor, liquidity is no big problem, because if you're making the right selections, the prices will go up and liquidity will follow. So it's something that is sometimes an advantage if you're able to buy cheap stocks that have relatively low liquidity but are going to increase the liquidity going forward. But there's no question that the big markets get more of the money because of liquidity.
Let's talk about the other factor which is weighing down and rattling investment sentiment, and that's the trade war. And a full-blown trade war between China and US obviously is going to dampen sentiments across emerging markets. Currently, we are seeing growth rates coming off in China as well. Third quarter GDP print was a little bit on the lower side at 6.5%. So the fourth quarter number is going to be immensely important. According to you, what are the implications and the repercussions of a full-blown trade war?
A full-blown trade war between the U.S. and China, I believe, will have a beneficial effect on a number of other countries, including India, because a lot of the exports now coming out of China will be switched to these other countries. Vietnam is a good example. Vietnam is now a major exporter of shoes, sports shoes, to the U.S. and the rest of the world. A lot of that manufacturing has been already transferred to these other countries, and I believe that's going to be implemented going forward. Mexico, for example, will be a beneficiary of this trend. So I think we've got to look at the negatives, but also the positives in terms of what happens with this trade war situation.
Mr. Mobius, let's talk about India. You've mentioned twice in this interaction already that, or at least my assumption is that my takeaway is that you like India. At these valuations, with the kind of twin deficit issues that everybody's been talking about, and the fact that we have a busy election calendar coming up, would you believe the levels give you comfort enough that we will tide over all of these uncertainties?
Yeah, well, the situation now is that India is on a reform track. Whether Modi gets stronger politically or weaker, it really doesn't matter that much, because whoever gets into power will have to continue the reform process, because the Indian public is demanding it. With smartphones and with the communications revolution, people really know what's going on, and they're going to be demanding more from their governments. So that's one thing. The other thing to remember is that India is a collection of states, individual states, that are competing each other for investment. That's a very positive development for foreign investors in particular, because they can pick and choose which state is going to offer the best deal to them. So for direct investors, this is a very, very positive situation. And I noticed that even in Mumbai, I was just in Mumbai, as you know, there's been increasing investment coming in on outsourcing, people coming in to do computer operations, call answering, etc. So I believe that's going to continue, and it doesn't necessarily show up on the trade figures, but it will show up eventually on the balance of payments situation.
Interesting. So am I to presume that you are looking at India a lot more actively than what you would have been otherwise, and whether you're looking at India very, very selectively, or do you believe the larger market could itself over the course of the next 3 or 4 years give even foreign investors better returns? Because I think that's been the bugbear of the foreign investor, that the rupee depreciation has led to almost negligible returns, if at all, dollar denominated.
Yeah, the initial reaction to these situation of a lower rupee and lower market, because people get fearful and they exit. But there are other investors, bargain hunters like ourselves, that get very, very interested when they see these declines. So I think you're going to see the overall market doing much, much better next year and going forward. And I believe that for individual stocks, there are going to be some big winners, which is, of course, what we're looking for.
What's your growth projection for India? Do you feel that our targeted growth of about 7.5 will be met? And on the other hand, one aspect is crude oil prices that are really important from the twin deficit point of view for us as well, and from the economic perspective. So how do you think these two elements are going to play out?
I think the growth is going to continue at a high level, about 7%, which is incredible growth for a country the size of India. I believe that on the price front, you're going to probably see higher prices for a whole range of items, simply because per capita incomes are rising in India. And of course, the interesting thing that is developing is with the reform in the distribution system in India, you're going to see big advantages for the retail trade and eventually for consumers.
Good news, guys. Got a promotion and a damn good raise.
Congrats, beta.
Congrats, मेरी तरफ से भी.
From mama too.
वाह, raise? अब तो इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी ले ले.
इंश्योरेंस? कौन सी कंपनी से लूं?
सोचना क्या? चूज वही जिस पर हो पूरा भरोसा.
वीरू, go for convenience. My company is online, quick and simple.
बेटा, but पॉलिसी समझाएगा कौन?
वेबसाइट पे सब है पापा. I can even call and ask.
क्लेम सेटलमेंट का रेशो क्या है? मेरी कंपनी का 98% से ज्यादा है.
That's good, but आज की generation wants everything online. Easy premium payment options, loan facilities और wide range of products.
अरे पापा दीदी, I will decide. Just send your links now. तुम दोनों भी ना. Same choice. LIC.
LIC trending with times. 62 सालों से हर generation की पसंद.
it's always good to get some good advice in these times, and who better than S. Naren, our special guest who joins me on our special series, Navigating Through Uncertainty. So try and help us navigate through these uncertain times. You are known to identify, as I said, some of the most interesting contrarian bets. Where are you contrarian right now?
Actually, we are contrarian in quite a few PSUs because many of those PSU stocks have come down to very low valuations. Then one of the sectors which has done very badly is Telecom recently. So I've gone back to Telecom because Telecom as a sector does look to be one of the most important sectors from the way. So I would say that's another interesting. And clearly the corporate facing banks, I'm of the view that, you need to focus a little less on consumption in the near term, although it's a fantastic long-term structural story, and focus more on manufacturing and the likes.
With countdown right here on Bloomberg. 20 minutes left for the markets to shut shop, and it is a strong, buoyant market. 215 points for the Nifty 50, 2% for the Sensex as well. The Nifty Bank 525 odd points. So it's now it's not just banks, by the way, which are making that contribution. When you have a Larsen & Toubro up about 5%, when you have the pharma space doing rather well, I think there is merit in looking at the non-banking names as well, which are contributing. TCS is up a whole 4%. Reliance Industries is up a whole 4%. Strong moves here for almost all of these stocks. Before we get in the FAB for commentary of the day, Hemen, for somebody who's looking to make a trade, would you go out and buy a Nifty at the current levels? It's up 2% now.
Frankly speaking, I'd wait for a small 30-point dip, but the markets as such, they've been...
What would you do with a 30-point dip?
Your stop loss becomes closer, nothing else. But frankly speaking, they've been so oversold, Neeraj. This savage move was in the making. So I'd say sell the 10,000 puts. If there is a correction, then buy the futures, and then on the bounce, sell off the 10,000 puts.
No, sorry, that's confusing. So what does somebody do now?
I say sell the 10,000 put option.
Go out and sell the Nifty 10,000 put option.
Yeah. In case this correction that I'm talking, it may not come. I think it's very irrelevant because we are at 10,250. We take out 10,250, we are going further upside. So if this correction comes in, you can go long in futures. Wait a bit, and when the Nifty goes up some more, square off the puts and hold the naked futures long.
Okay. All right. So that's a bullish call on the index using options. Particularly writing of 10,000 put. Well, let's find out what has made it to Yash Kapadia's list of Fab 4 stocks this afternoon. I'm sure, Yash, it wasn't very difficult to find those 4 stocks. If you would have made it Fab 8, also it wouldn't have been difficult.
Absolutely, Devina. Spoiled for choice today. But it's just one of those days. Let's take a look at what are the Fab 4 stocks today. We start with Divi's Laboratories, and that one is reacting positively to its strong set of numbers. The top line has grown by about 44% to 1,285 crores. Margins have expanded by almost 9 percentage points, and net profit that has almost doubled to 398 crore, partly aided by the higher forex gains. Capacite Infra, that one is up 14.5% after receiving a repeat 705 crore rupees order from Oberoi Realty for the construction of 5 66-story buildings as part of its Garden City project located in Goregaon. Sugar stocks, as I was talking about earlier, they are in focus as well. So something like a Triveni Engineering, that one is up 5% after Sugar Body ISMA had cut the production estimate for the sugar season starting October by from 35.5 million tons to 32 million tons, almost a 10% cut in the first revised estimate. And the last stock I want to highlight is Natco Pharma. That one's up about 3% after the company said that it would consider the proposal of a share buyback at its board meet on November 5th. Back to you.
All right, Yash, thanks very much for that. That's Yash's list of Fab 4 stocks, all of them quite active in today's session. Dharmesh Kant is joining us in right now of IndiaNivesh Securities. Dharmesh, good afternoon to you. It's been a solid start to the day and probably looks like an even more solid end to the day, about 2.5% closer to that for the indices. What's the call on the market from medium-term horizon at this current juncture? Do you believe that this bounce back could be propelled further?
Yeah, good afternoon. Looks like the way the trade has begun this morning and the way the participation increased as the day, went forward. I think that in the medium term, maybe for a couple of weeks, this rally which has commenced today should stay on, and maybe 10,600, 700 till that time we should not have any problem. In between, minor sell-offs may happen. Because two factors which were happening but the market was not taking into account was, one was the crude prices which has came down sharply. So 8-9% kind of a correction was there. Market did not respond to that. Secondly, the earnings so far has been really good, which was anticipated. So nothing unusual has happened, but still the numbers are there on the board, like 150 companies which we have been seeing through, which have delivered numbers around top line growth has been around 24% and profitability growth has been around 14% on a Y-on-Y basis. Similarly for financials, the profitability growth has been around 35% and no negative surprises as of now till yet. So this has helped the sentiment. So this was long overdue, but still, having said that, I will take it with a pinch of salt. This is more of a breather rally which is in between, rather than a continuity of this rally from medium to long term perspective.
All right, Dharmesh, did you guys have a chance to assess the power announcement? Because these stocks are very, very active. Adani Power is now up a whole 19%, the top gainer on the Nifty 500. What would you be doing with your investments in that pocket?
See, I did not go into the details of the announcement which has come through, though the headlines was known to me. This is just, more of a sentimental kind of a thing. Incremental revenues will definitely get enhanced with the increase in the tariff, but how long it will sustain, how the entire, structural shift which the policy decisions have been talking about for DISCOM and all, that has to be seen. So unless I go through in detail all the nitty-gritties of the thing, it's difficult to comment as of now. More or less, this will take at least 1 year to 1.5 years for it to, actually materialize into the profitability of the company. So that is there. But yeah, a right direction, right approach, which has been adopted.
All right, got that. That's some of those power names that are active in the session this afternoon. Some of the other names that are doing okay for themselves, probably a little more subdued. Yes Bank was down 8% on Friday's session. Stock today as well, no great shakes out there, so about 181 on the stock. Hemen, anything that you've noticed in terms of any indicators on Yes Bank?
Yes, I think it looks like a buy, Devina. Deeply oversold. I think I'd take a contra buy. We're at 181, stop loss of 165, target 215. Looks great.
Looks great for a buy right now?
Buy.
Okay, a buy right now. Well, we'll talk about more stocks in just a bit, but in the meantime, let's take a look at what dealing rooms are recommending this afternoon. Yatin Mota and Darshan Mehta, both of them are here with their channel checks. Good afternoon, boys. Who wants to start? I'll leave it to you guys.
Boys?
Okay, I'm just making you younger, so yeah, exactly.
Okay, I'll start since Devina always passes on to Yatin. I'll get the opportunity today. Ambuja Cements is something that dealers are talking about. It's up 1.5%. A rather large block deal happened in trade today, and a couple of dealing rooms did manage to indicate the fact that majority of the selling pressure that was there is now over since the block deal has happened. So Ambuja is something that we are actively watching out for. The other counter is Wockhardt. It's up almost 11% in trade today. Some bit of regulatory cheer that's coming in from Wockhardt. What has happened is the district court in the US, ruled invalidated a patent for one of the key drugs that is owned by Johnson & Johnson. It's a $1.5 billion drug. for which Wockhardt and Emnil have the tentative approval. They still haven't launched it, but this certainly makes it life better for Wockhardt if they manage to get the approval. And Indiabulls Housing Finance has moved up almost 14% today. Most of the NBFC stocks are doing well. What we hear from a couple of dealing room is that the promoter circle is actively accumulating Indiabulls. But Yatin, what are you hearing?
Well, Darshan, clearly financials remain under focus point, and Bajaj Finance, that is one stock wherein dealers do indicate that there is buying at lower levels from domestic mutual funds. Remember, post the earnings, we have seen the stock gaining traction in the future and option segment as well. So dealers are positive on Bajaj Finance. But on the flip side, in the private banking space, IndiaNivesh Bank is something which is, seeing some selling pressure, and dealers, are recommending a STBT kind of a strategy, which is sell today, buy tomorrow kind of a strategy in the future and option segment. They expect further downside as far as IndiaNivesh Bank is concerned from the trading side. And finally, in the cash segment, as I was mentioning earlier as well, Balrampur Chini is something wherein HNIs are accumulating at every dips. So sugar as a pack probably looks strong to dealers at this point in time.
Right, Yatin, thanks very much for that. That's the buzz that we're picking up from dealing rooms this afternoon. Dharmesh, have you checked out the sugar space, and ISMA projecting lower productions this year?
Yeah, looks likely, but at the same time, sugar has always been a cyclical trading place rather than a wealth creator or wealth generator for the investors. So one has to time the cyclicality of these stocks, and the volatility is too high. I don't think for an industry which can grow at 2% on a consumption basis, 1.5 to 2% on an annualized basis. So that is the potential you can have. Price variations, again, it's an essential commodity, and going into the election year next year, inflation will be a concern. So any steep hike beyond the tolerable, tolerance limit of the people, government would not like that, and then you can have the interventions coming into play, plus the MSP price which is there. Again, it's been regulated by different state governments and the government. So too much of overhang out there to take a fundamental call. So if you have taken a trading position, enjoy the benefits and be out of it as soon as you make money. Nothing there to keep these stocks for even from 6 months to 8 month kind of a perspective.
All right, so
closing strategies then, just before we get in and do more conversations. A bunch of stocks are flying around, but it's 10 minutes left for the markets to shut shop. Brijesh, I'll come to you first. Your top closing strategy.
Yeah, I'll go with 2-3 stocks which look good. One would be Siemens. Somewhere around 888 has been quoting. Presidential or any dip somewhere at 886, one can take a buy call with the stop loss of 870, pay for the target of 910 to 915. One would be from a pharma. Ajanta Pharma look goods. Right now it's been quoting at 1015. Present rate also 1010. One can take a buy call with the stop loss of 998. Pay for the target of 1035. Say even 1050 looks on the chart, but for a couple of trading sessions. And another would be Hindalco on a metal pack is looking good. It's quoting somewhere around 225 or 226. Keep a stop loss of 221. Pay for the target of 235 to 236.
Hemen, what about you?
Grasim, Ultratech, BTST.
Grasim, Ultratech, BTST. Both of them?
Both of them.
1% stop loss, 2% target. Anything which is slightly higher in returns that you would trade? Slightly positional?
I think I had given a call on Mahindra. It's almost hit the target, but I think Apollo Tyres and Maruti both can give a 5% move over the next 1.5 2 weeks needed. So that can be considered from a positional point of view. Apollo Tyres and Maruti both 5% for the next couple of weeks.
Interesting. A bunch of mid-sized names have gone up today. There are 2 or 3 names, just before we get back to Dharmesh Kant. Brijesh, a couple of these names, Godrej Properties, which is up 11%, and 588. So quality real estate has kind of bounced back. And today KRBL has shown some spunk. It's up about 12%.
See, I'll go with first of all Godrej Property. No doubt the stock had moved from a recent swing low of 588 and it has crossed the previous swing high of 549. Now it's been trading at 558. Definitely, if someone wants to play for a buy side, one can keep a stop loss of 563 or say 68 and play for the target of 625. So definitely looks good on the chart. Anything on the closing basis of 625, another say 30 to 40 rupees can be seen. The KRBL has been concerned. It's a little bit volatile, but whereas on the downside has been concerned, the previous swing low of 318 to 320 was been held, and after that we have seen a pullback from there. As per the chart has been concerned, 335, 336, the deeper support has been concerned. So if it comes somewhere around and trade below 350, definitely one can take a buy call with a stop of 355, 335, and play for the target of 375 to 380.
Okay, interesting. Some of the stocks and the moves that we've had there. Dharmesh, anything that in your funds or to your top clients in the pharma space that you guys have done in the last 3 or 4 sessions? A bunch of these pharma names are doing very well. Predominantly, I reckon some results that have turned out well.
Yeah, definitely. As a basket call, we have taken a stand stand on the pharmaceutical space as such, and there the topics being Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, and Lupin with Cipla at the 4th position. We have not covered Divi's Lab in that report. So, but we do think that pharma is at the bottom cycle of the end, because if you look at the US prices, they have now declined is around single digit. So it started firming up there. At the same time, emerging market has been contributing well to all the domestic pharma companies, and Indian side they have been falling largely into the domestic pharma space as well. So the geographical mix is getting more diversified. At the same time, currency advantage was there this time around this quarter, and it will be likely there in 3rd quarter as well. So valuations now look like stabilizing, and FY21 would be the year when you will see the real material benefits coming to the play. So from a 2 to 3 year perspective, this space looks very good, around 30-40% kind of a stock price appreciation, which we are looking at the stocks name which I mentioned. Primarily it is Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, and Lupin.
All right. The other pocket to watch out for are some of these in the NBFC space, brokerage names, so the likes of Edelweiss, Motilal Oswal, JM Financial for that matter. All these stocks are, Edelweiss is locked up in upper circuit 2 straight days, Friday's session as well as today's session. Motilal Oswal also seen that the sharp spike over the last few minutes of trade, 5.5% higher, and JM Financial is the other one that's trading with gains of closer to 10%, 71 on the counter. Hemen, anything on these names?
I think, Devina, all the stocks that you mentioned, frankly speaking, are very similar in terms of chart patterns. So, but if you want to take a slightly longer term point of view, I think JM Financial looks very interesting, Devina. We had a high of 190. We've been corrected for some time. We have just sub 65 are strong monthly and longer term supports between 60-65, Devina. So not much to lose, and from a longer term point of view, I think this could probably be a doubler if you have a 22 or 24 month time frame, Devina.
Well, let's wait and watch. Dharmesh, take a moment to thank you then for joining in today and giving us your perspective. Really appreciate your time, as always, I might add. But less than 3 minutes left for the markets to shut shop. So let's get you all the top movers and the market wrap. Get to movers in a bit. The key indices, strong show. I can tell you safely, nobody quite anticipated this to happen per se, but it's turned out to be a rather great day for the markets. And it's not just banks which are contributing, by the way. Mid caps and the small caps, well, the mid caps even better, up about 3%. The small caps in line with what the large cap indices have done. But let's talk about the movers now. I'll talk about the large caps. They will not bring you up to speed with what's happening at the mid cap end of the market. Strong gains for financials. Indiabulls Housing Finance now at the top, but ICICI Bank arguably has to be the stock of the day. SBI about 8% higher has done very well. Then some rate sensitives like Adani Ports, etc. have done well. And then the pharma pack, Dr. Reddy's and Divi's, 2 good numbers, 2 good reactions. Cipla is up about 5.5% too. And then the heavyweights, the likes of Reliance Industries, TCS are right here. Kind of keeps on bobbing between the list, but these 2 names, fairly heavy stocks, and they have done rather well for itself. And then you look at the losers. Yes, there are, but hardly any losers. And even stocks like HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank and IndusInd Bank, the losses have been contained in the session today. So very strong momentum in the session today. Difficult to say whether it will last or no, but after such a great day, you wouldn't expect a complete collapse the next day. I think we'll ask our experts about that. But the mid-cap end of the market, Devina, maybe power doesn't have representation here, but out there. Sugar doesn't have representation in the large caps, but out there. A bunch of those stocks flying around.
Well, most definitely, Neeraj, and all of them with good reason as well. And there's news that's driving the kind of momentum in most of these names. So I'm going to start off with the power sector, and particularly two of the bigger names there. That's Adani Power and Tata Power. Post the announcement of the news of the Supreme Court asking the KRChoksey to go ahead and look at the power tariff revisions, both these counters have been up and about 18% higher for an Adani, and a Tata Power up about 12.5%. From the banking space, the smaller mid-tier banks have been doing really well today. So the PSU banking index itself has been up about 8-9%. OVC is up about 13%. Union Bank of India, Bank of India, all of these stocks have shown you double-digit gains in today's session. Godrej Properties, that says an uptick of closer to about 55 to 56 odd points. That's about 11 odd % in today's session. Aside from that, a few other movers to highlight them. You've got the likes of an L&T Tech, Sterlite Tech, Eros International, and Divi's Lab, both of them moving around on the back of numbers. Intellect Design is the other one that over the last few trading sessions has seen some good pricing action. In today's session too, the stock is up about 12 odd %. KRBL, JM Financials, Edelweiss, and Motilal Oswal from the brokerage pack are some of the other names that are doing okay for themselves. And like Neeraj highlighted lastly, from the sugar space, most of the sugar names are extremely active on the back of ISMA announcing that there's going to be a production cut. So Barampachini has been up, Bajaj Hindustan, Mavana Sugars, Dhampur Sugars, all of these stocks look fairly active in today's session.
Well, 30 seconds left for the markets to shut shop. Maybe just let's get the heat map up and let's just see the dramatics. We're doing rather well for ourselves, so this is okay. But the heat map should be up there on your screen. I think this is turning out to be a really buoyant afternoon and the day of trade. And financials all the way out there. Indiabulls, ICICI, SBI, excellent days, excellent gains really for a bunch of these names. We'll also try and get you the MRR function for the small cap indices maybe. But essentially, the color of green dominating trade today. And okay, this is for the small cap index. And again, a bunch of these PSU names and PSU banking names that Devina was speaking about have done very well for themselves. Very few losers, Devina. Maybe a Persistent and a Jet Airways stand out, but hardly any losers.
Yeah, Jet Airways though, that one losing about 2 odd %. But today is definitely a day for the gains, and that will probably be seen even if you take a look at the market breadth and the advanced decline ratio and also the volume picture. So let's have the advanced decline ratio first to track how we've positioned for trade this afternoon. So 1:4 in favor of the advances. The start was fairly more contracted, post which you saw that expanse, and it's been a parallel line since then for the advances versus the declines. Let's take a look at the volume and the turnover function to see what that looks like. All right, so it's on the lower side actually. So 6 lakhs for the NSE F&O. Cash market though has seen a slightly better move, about 34,000 odd, pretty much in line with what we've been seeing over the last few days. But the concern remains here on the futures and options side on a day where the market's gone up about 2-2.5%, not much in terms of the overall turnover contribution.
Yeah, maybe early day into the new series, you never know. But let's sit and watch. For now, seems okay. The contributors list, well, no-brainer really. ICICI Bank would have been right up there. But SBI, L&T, SBI shows you all-round participation, not just banking and financial services. Anyways, final thoughts from our experts. Brijesh, in light of this, what is the near-term upside or a level that you would believe we could face stiff resistance, if at all?
See, as I have said, 10,185, 10,255, if we are able to cross 10,255, the tough resistance to watch would be 10,385 to 10,400 odd level, where the supply would be coming up. If anyhow we are able to cross, then the next level to watch would be 10,000, say 600 or say 10,555. But I think that this time we might try to touch 10,700 also in this pullback rally. But definitely there would be a profit booking since from psychological level of 10,000 we have right now have seen a pullback rally of 250 points, that is 10,250. So another 150 points, say 10,400 would be the level where the profit booking would be coming. But in that profit booking, if we hold on the level of 10,185, definitely the next rally would be for the 10,700. And I think that by second week or third week week of November, we should try to touch the level of 10,700 mark.
Hemen, what about you?
Yes, Devina, looks good. It's certainly honeymoon time, much overdue. So everything looks rosy and hunky-dory. So I guess it's going to remain like that for a week or two. So I was positive, I'm positive, and will remain positive at least till 10,550. 10.7 possible, but I'm looking at 10,550 in the next 10 trading sessions.
All right, so make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot to Hemen as well as Brijesh. Appreciate both of you taking out the time and joining us with your ideas. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this afternoon's edition of Countdown. Thanks a lot for watching. From Neeraj, myself, and the entire team that's put the show together.
Good news, got a promotion and a damn good